Hi, I'm Marlee Head. Welcome to Just a Thought. Hello, welcome back to Just a Thought. This session I want to discuss inspiration and why people write, what gives them their ideas. People have all sorts of things that they use for inspiration. And I also want to share with you some poems and prose that I've written about emotions and life experiences and other things that I'll talk about later on in this program. A very important type of inspiration comes from occurrences in your own life. When something happens that changes your life, there are a lot of deep feelings that go along with that, and sometimes it's necessary to express them before you can carry on. Sometimes you can't work out how you feel about a big change until you write about it. The piece you write doesn't have to be specifically organized or formatted in any way, but the actual writing it down, that's what helps organize your thoughts and feelings. In order to write something, you have to be familiar with how you feel about it and your opinions toward it. This can be looking inside at your deepest levels. I have a short prose piece here that I would like to share with you about meeting one of my best friends about 8 years ago. At the time, I didn't really have any close friends, and meeting her changed my life. Looking back on it, writing it later, I realized how lucky I was to have her. Writing can help you remember specific circumstances that happened a long time ago. At the time, they might not have seemed very important, but when you write them down later, you realize exactly how much you've been changed. This piece is called Fairies, Berries, and Fate. I am perched on the step, its unforgiving concrete cutting into my short, skinny legs. I am holding a fat, lumpy stick, the best pestle a chef could own. Beside me is a blood-red pile of sweet-smelling fruit from a wild strawberry plant. As I pound the berries with the stick, pale pink juice oozes from them, and the round seeds part company with their shredding flesh, staining the porch. A girl approaches, her clear blue gaze fixed on me. She sits beside me, the cement leaving its mark on her legs, which I note are much longer than my own. She parts her lips, as small and red and moist as the berries I am pounding, to ask what I am doing. When I tell her I am preparing food for the fairies, she, too, seizes a stick and helps me squash the fruit into jam, which is to be spread upon the morning toast of winged garden dwellers. We finish our divine delicacies and share a look over the tainted porch and the bowl of jam. We will do the same the next week, and the week following that, and the week following that. We are friends. In part, this piece is about emotions. Emotions about meeting a new friend, about leaving the life of solitude I was leading, and later on, when I was actually writing the piece, about thinking of how lucky I was and how much I had changed over time. Emotions are the root of so many poems, including most of my own. There are many times in my life when I feel I can't express what's going through my mind, or I feel like no one would ever be able to think of what I was thinking. Writing allows me a way to release all that. It can be about any emotion, including romance, which is the next topic on my list. As anyone my age can testify, romance can be confusing and messy and overall unpleasant. I've been through a lot of difficulty regarding boys, and like most other things, writing has helped me through. Looking back over my work, there are poems and prose alike that express a rainbow of different emotions over one guy or another. It was confusing and painful at the time, and some of it still is, but writing has helped me through it and given me a way to make sense of what's going on in my life. There are two contrasting poems of mine that I would like to read to you about love. The first is called Crying, and contrary to its title, it's about the more happy, positive side of love. And it was written after I received something that might be considered a love letter. I cry through my mouth, an effervescing fount of silvery liquid pouring from my lips. Shiny droplets cascade between my teeth. Tears of joy ripple in waves across my tongue. They cannot drip from my eyes, for there are too many. A tidal wave of happiness. I see the liquid jewels in my mind's pearly clouded eye, but to the rest of the world, I laugh. The molten diamonds are really a golden echoing song, my psalm of exultation, a tribute to the life I lead, the words I read, and the love that is yet to come. This next poem I wrote about 3 years ago in regard to my first crush, which for me was a very unpleasant experience. I didn't really know the boy in question. We met at a week-long summer camp, and after that I never really saw him again. I was disoriented, partly because I was so young and inexperienced, but also because I never expected it to happen. It took me almost a year to recover from the emotional scars that this virtual stranger had left me with. About 3 months after our last contact, I was feeling some particularly strong emotions, and I wrote them in this poem called The Rise and Fall of Hope. A thrilling event, one of beauty and power, occurs. It promises hope, glory, and sun for the infinite expanse of the future. I rise like a great black shadow, my inner hope kindled to life like a blissful beast from sleep. Red gold fire flies from my fingertips, hot and auspicious. It rises off my being, sparking and burning like the blaze that it is. I feel exhilarated, powerful. I am, I am, I am. Those are the words that course through my half-existent mind. I am, I am, I am. I soar upward toward the light of hope, the golden sun, the mirage of a real dream come true. Time, ever fickle, passes by like thick cream. I care not. I'm uplifted by the promise of hope. But, in its consequent way, time won over. The chorus of I am, I am, I am, slowly faded to maybe, maybe, maybe it will come. I forced myself to believe in it. I stopped forcing upwards the eagle that I am. I hung in eternity, still, frozen as though by ice. I felt ice coursing through my veins. I was dying a slow, tragic death. Death, death, death. This was the chorus pulsing through my veins. I was not dying. My hope was. As this realization engulfed me with the power of a lifetime, I began to sink. I was no longer liberated. I was being deflated. That sensation was enough to puncture even the most inflated of hopes. Deflate, death, deflate. My fire, ever present, was growing hotter, licking my arms, my torso, my hips. My entire shadow was being enveloped by fiery emotion. The wind that was blowing my world apart was reinforcing my greatest ally and my greatest enemy, forcing my two life forces to clash and burn. Death, death, death. I was flying downward, down, down, down. I was being robbed of all my soul. All my life had depended on that hope, and that hope had been dashed. As I lived this thought, my shadow picked up speed. I hit the raging rocks of hopelessness with the force of my entire being. Each rock was being eroded by the sea of despair. I was being eroded by the sea of despair. I kept my head up so as to sniff the damp, icy air for any sign of my original hope. None came. Over time I lifted my head, but not often. Now I lay here, my body paralyzed, waiting. I know deep in my heart that the day will come when I will stop altogether and be entirely consumed by despair. Despair, despair, despair. I will be consumed by despair. As you can see, even one emotion can be expressed in very different ways. Feelings make up such a large part of my mind that they almost demand to be expressed. Writing is a really good way to do that. It doesn't have to be personal feelings or experiences that inspire you to write. Nature is a great inspiration to many people, myself included. I would highly encourage you to go outside sometime and just spend some time looking around and see what sparks your interest, what stands out the most for you. Anything outdoors can be inspiring to you, from mushrooms to trees to flowers to sunsets. The list is infinite. Furthermore, people can interpret the same thing differently. You might find nighttime to be beautiful and peaceful and inspirational, while others might find it to be spooky and mysterious and inspirational. Two very different poems can come out of the same thing. One aspect of nature that I love writing about is the seasons. I feel differently about each season. All four seem to have a different personality to me, and they affect my mood. I would like to share with you a poem I wrote called Summers. It illustrates what summers are to me and some of my favorite things to do during the hottest months of the year. Summers are beautiful, living things. They are warm, fruity, and sultry. They seem to exist only for lying in the dying sun in the evening, eating watermelon and peaches by the pound. Then, when the mosquitoes come out and the fruit bats fly down from the darkened treetops, I go in. Or I stay. I stay until the sky is ruby red, fading into hues of pale pink and deep purple, dotted with little silver flecks, the stars. And in the center of this magnificent patchwork of color, there is a great glowing orange sphere, the sun. The orb, the light, the great all, it shines like a glowing beacon on the horizon. I stay until the endless, color-shot sky fades into nothing. I stay until the rich, velvety blackness of the night sky spreads across the heavens like a silken dome. I look up as the great grand universe becomes peppered with little silver specks, like white hot sprinkles on a dark black ice cream cone. I stay, eating dewberries and vanilla ice cream, until even the crickets and bullfrogs cease their singing. I stay, for this is summer. Another great thing that you could use for inspiration for writing is music, particularly classical music. So much emotion and soul goes into a piece of music that listeners can pick up on it and interpret it however they wish. That's a wonderful aspect of music. A song one person thinks is sad, another person might think is hopeful or even happy. No matter the emotion, a piece of beautiful music can bring all kinds of noteworthy thoughts to mind. I have a list of several pieces I would recommend listening to. Have a piece of paper or a notebook or whatever you prefer to write on handy, and then just write down whatever thoughts come to mind. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. Even a few words or phrases can be very helpful later when you're trying to think of something to write. Some of my favorite inspiration pieces are Vocalise by Sergei Rachmaninoff. There is a piano version and a violin version. I prefer the piano version, but it's personal preference. You might even consider listening to them both and seeing what thoughts come to mind as you listen to each one. Any of the lyric pieces by Edvard Grieg. These are a series of piano pieces that are fairly short. They run about 1 to 5 minutes long. They're really pretty, and each one is just like a little musical painting. They would be a great start if you're looking for a poem idea. Serenade for Strings by Antonin Dvorak. This is a longer orchestral work, but it's really beautiful and moving. If you're looking for some background music when you write, it runs about a half an hour long, so you might want to look into it. The same goes for any of the 9 symphonies by Ludwig van Beethoven. They're really gorgeous pieces, chock full of emotion. And it would be excellent to try listening to some of these if you have an idea, but you're just looking for some inspiration and something to get you started writing. And lastly, but definitely not least, any piano piece by Frédéric Chopin would be really something that you might want to look into. But I would recommend any of his nocturnes. Those are really gorgeous. There are plenty more, but this is just a taste of some music I would encourage you to try listening to and see what comes to mind. There's one more type of inspiration I would like to talk about, and that is art. Writing and art are very similar in that each involves taking an idea and creatively expressing it so that in the end you have a beautiful product that can be used for either public or private enjoyment. That said, art is more visual. Looking at someone else's more concrete expressions of passion can be very inspirational. Really big paintings or sculptures or something that's very old is particularly inspirational because when you look at something like that, you kind of get the feeling that you're standing in front of something that is so much older and more universal than you are. Writing about the emotions you feel regarding something like that, or even describing the work itself, can help more people, even if it's just one person, you, to connect to that global understanding. Hopefully these inspiration suggestions have been helpful to you. I would really recommend trying some of them out, even if you haven't, or perhaps especially if you haven't, tried writing something like that before. That is partly what is so beautiful about writing. It allows you to safely step outside of your comfort zone and try something new. If you write mostly about personal experiences or feelings, which is what I tend to do, try writing something a little more universal and concrete, like nature or music. Watching your style expand to encompass other genres is a really wonderful experience, and it gives you a sense of fulfillment. While writing is a wonderful gift to the world, it is ultimately a personal experience. When you write, you take a tiny piece of your heart and soul and capture it on a piece of paper. It's a work of art, yes, but it's also part of you. You can't get much more satisfaction than that. Until next time, happy writing.